month after you do this thing right here called monetary awareness. I think there's those type of
So hopefully I got some audio now. Give me a thumbs up in the stream if you guys can hear what I'm saying. Okay, there we go. It says no sound. So hopefully I got some sound now. Just throw me a thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear me, and I'll keep moving. So I was doing all that talking, but nobody heard me. So assuming you can hear me, I hear clearly. Okay, I hear clicking. I hear you. Okay, sounds good. So the clicking is going to be my mouse going back and forth over articles. And the very first article here that I was mentioning, the subject title does it all. Canada joins warship drills to counter China. And so it talks about the idea that now Canada has a frigate, HMCS Calgary, which is heading towards the Chinese area, and they're going to be joining in drills. And so it just plays along the idea that they're trying to ramp up this this whole idea of drills being needed for preparation for something, hence the idea of possible war down the line. Not sure when or whatnot, but the article's below if you guys want to read more into it for yourself. Just want to highlight it a little bit. And so the very next article is from dailymail.com, and it's once again idea of a lot of wealthy individuals deciding to uproot and relocate due to regulation, taxation, and the pending economic shift that's occurring. So it says hedge fund manager who made billions betting against the U.S. housing says he made move to Puerto Rico to avoid all legal taxes. And so if you thumb through it, this is a gentleman right here, shows him and his family making that move to Puerto Rico. And so amongst the title, I'm sure it's a lot more to that, but Puerto Rico has a very favorable tax code to those that are productive and have, you know, a large net worth. So if I have any viewers out there that are of the higher net worth category, Puerto Rico here is where all the millionaires and billionaires are going. So I hope myself to go down there and visit one of these days. But definitely, if you're interested, the article's down below for you guys to read further. And then here we have from Reuters, it says Venezuela's annual inflation hit 833,997% in October. And so imagine that level of inflation. I couldn't even begin to imagine that level of inflation. And I got an article coming in a second. It's going to give you an idea, a better idea of what the real inflation rate is in this country. But just to give you an idea what's going on here is it says Venezuela's consumer prices rose to six digits percent in 12 months through October, according to a report by opposition controlled Congress. And so it looked like they have the mainstream narrative from Maduro, and then they have as it says, the opposition-controlled part of Congress, which keeps tabs on the so-called, real numbers. But it says monthly inflation decelerated to 148% from 233% in September. The data showed. And so go through a little bit more. It says Maduro blames a U.S.-led economic war for Venezuela's woes, arguing that sanctions imposed by Washington are intended to destabilize its government and control the country's oil wealth. So more information there if you guys are interested in read for yourself. Feel free to scroll down below. Just want to touch on what's happening. It says South Korea, Iran to trade in local currency. So here we have the whole idea on Iran being sanctioned. And so an article out of Press TV, which I believe is out of India, if I'm not mistaken, is in reference to what's happening with South Korea. And so it looks like they will be going against the possible sanction themselves, and they're going to do some trade in local currency. So more idea of a de-dollarization process when local currencies are brought into the mix. So give you an idea, it says South Korea says it has reached a deal with Iran to use local currencies in mutual trade between the two countries instead of the dollar. So we have two countries just going to use their own currencies instead of the dollar. So that's less need for dollars between these two countries. It says, according to Yonhap news agency, the two countries will, quote, will restart the yuan-based settlement of bilateral trade transactions using the accounts of the Central Bank of Iran at two South Korean banks. And I don't want to begin pronouncing those names, that first name, Wori Bank and the Industrial Bank of Korea. So just another story worthy of mentioning of how nations are using their own currencies and no longer using the dollar. And so here's another article here out of Make It or CNBC.com. And here's what you can expect for this next presidential candidate. And I guarantee you, if this gentleman here, based upon this title, if the mainstream public gets a wind of this, the fact that he's talking about $1,000 per month free cash, here's the idea of the UBI, or the Universal Basic Allowance, UBA, as we coined it here on Rethinking the Dollar. And so the very fact that we're going to have a gentleman running on the idea of by 2021 to give every citizen, I'm assuming a citizen, it doesn't say that, but $1,000 a month. So that's something that I would definitely, keep an eye on, because this guy will probably rise in popularity real soon as this article gets out. It says entrepreneur Andrew Yang has a big goal for a relatively unknown business person to reach the White House. He's aiming to get there by selling America on the idea that all citizens age 18 to 64 should get a check for $1,000 every month to no strings attached from the U.S. government. So no mention about how it's going to be covered, but it's coming from the government. That means deficits, debt, and higher national debt. And then we have the idea that this guy here, as I mentioned the other day in the live stream, that based upon the trends, what seems ideal is that we had our first African-American president. We were supposed to have a female president. Then there's a couple other types of presidents we were supposed to have, and I wouldn't doubt this gentleman here, probably, obviously American born, running for presidency and probably getting a good bid on the Democratic ticket, and hence the idea of giving away $1,000. He's going to get a lot of people's votes, not to mention the consequences that come from the title free. So if you guys are interested in reading more about this Universal Basic Allowance, feel free to click the link down below. Next article here, it says world's largest asset manager warns. So here we have another gentleman, as I always mention, whenever you hear someone that's higher up, that's in the know, when they give a warning or they share their opinion and it's reported on, it's worthy of taking a note of. So it says the dollar's days as global reserve currency are numbered. So that says it in and of itself, but yet let's find out a little bit more what he's talking about here. It says, in comments, the sound eerily similar to a warning issued by Putin, who warned during a speech last month that the U.S. risked undermining the dollar's reserve statuses with the sanction regime. Said the CEO of the world's largest asset management firm said Tuesday, 2 days ago, during a panel discussion at the Economic Forum in Singapore, that the U.S. dollar's status as the world's dominant currency wouldn't last forever. It says, quote here, we're going to move there over time, probably referring to the no need for dollar. It says instead of working with its creditors like China, the U.S. is fighting with them by engaging in a incrementist trade war. Fink said that in his experience, it's never wise to fight with your lender. So in another sense, it's never good to bite the hand that feeds you. And right now, our primary creditors have been China, and we're pissing them off. Here's a little visual aid here. It talks about the last reserve statuses of various countries. And then here it has something which I'll click on to give you a better idea. It says history of current reserve currencies. And so the United States says it's due for some type of removal from the status of reserve currency around between 1920 to 2023 to 2030, according to this gentleman here. So that's basically, what's that, 12 years from now, according to whoever put this visual aid together. And then it says the build-up period, it looks like we're going to have some type of EU-led or something of that nature here. So more information if you're down below, if you're interested for reading it yourself. So the goal is with these live streams, news, just to scan through some articles, but more importantly, if they are of interest, feel free to read them for yourself. Next one here says for Puerto Ricans, a first step toward debt relief. And so, give you an idea what's going on here. Scroll down some. It says a U.S. judge has approved a restructuring deal to address some of Puerto Rico's massive debt. And so a restructuring deal, when I hear that off rip, it lets me know that someone's going to get a haircut. Someone's going to get shafted on the end that's expecting to get paid what they lent out. It says not including pension obligations, the island owes creditors at least $72 billion. It says, and its territory, it doesn't have the ability to file for bankruptcy. The consensual debt restructuring agreement is a deal that was worked out between Puerto Rico's government development bank and its creditors, i.e. hedge funds, municipalities, and local credit unions. So here's the people that will be mostly impacted by this restructuring. So we have hedge funds, municipalities, and local credit unions. So all of those three entities named there, they all took depositors' funds, i.e. savings and investments, CDs, mutual markets accounts, whatever it is that was deposited to them. In order to earn some yield, they decided to lend this money or invest it in the country or state of Puerto Rico, rather. And now that they can't meet their obligations, they're going to come up with some restructuring. So everyone who has some part of their portfolio linked to any one of those hedge funds, municipalities, or credit unions will definitely see a little bit less taken off their asset holdings. And when it says municipalities, I'm assuming a lot of states have, lent money in the returns of buying up Puerto Rican bonds as an investment tool that I'm sure they're going to find out pretty soon will be restructured. And so it says Long pointed out that $4 billion out of the $75 billion is under 5%, probably the rate of return that they're getting. And so we'll see how that pans out. But once again, more information below if you're interested in reading for yourself. The next one here, this is below the equator, and this is from Latin American Herald Tribune. And so the title is Hunger Increases for Third Straight Year in Latin America. So it gives some statistics as to the people that are experiencing issues in their economies due to the fact things aren't what they should be. It says the UN Food and Agriculture Organization said that hunger has affected 39.3 million people, or 6.1% of the population in Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is out of Santiago, Chile. It says hunger in Latin America. The report also highlights that obesity has become the most significant nutritional threat in Latin America, where 250 million people are overweight. So we got some countries that's going through economic woes, the people are starving, and in other countries where it's a little bit more abundance of food supply, they're overweight. It says nearly 1 out of 4 adults in Latin America is obese, and 7.3% of children under 5 are overweight. Sounds like here in America. It says in Argentina, Bolivia, and Venezuela, the number of malnourished people has risen continuously since 2014. In Venezuela, it says some 3.7 million people are malnourished, or 11.7% of its population are malnourished. So in Haiti, it's not much better. Mexico. So more information there, statistics-wise, if you're interested in finding out the health of our people below the equator. Next article here, I think was very interesting as well because it's out of the Afghan Voice Agency, so an Afghanistan news source. But we all know that the situation with Iran dealing with sanctions, but yet some countries were allowed to continue to trade while some countries were not. And it looks like Afghanistan has a thumbs up to continue to buy oil from Iran. So the question, the first thing that came to my mind is, why Afghanistan out of all places? Would it happen to do with anything in relation to the United States military being stationed in Afghanistan and us wanting to continue to, make sure we keep eye over those fields out there with those opioids in those fields? And so what better way to keep our military in that country to protect those fields other than to cooperate and allow Afghanistan on the good boys list to purchase Iranian oil? So it says, after reimposing sanctions on Iran, the United States has allowed Afghanistan to continue to buy oil from Iran and use India-backed Chabahar, you figured out, port in the neighboring country. So short article here, but yet Afghanistan's on the good list. They can do business with Iran. And so this is what's happening in the news today. Wanted to basically just shine a little light on some subject matter here. Keep it sweet and simple, to the point, because there's no one subject matter here. There's a variety of subjects here. So with that being the case, I wanted to just give you guys what's happening in the news. More important, if you found this informative, give it a thumbs up and then share this information or share any particular article you like. Other than that, we'll see you tonight at 9:30 p.m. for a live stream with Bill Powers, a gentleman who's going to share some information relevant to mining stocks and some of his investment strategies and things he looks for as an investor. So looking forward to seeing you guys tonight. More importantly, if you have not as of yet, take advantage of the Golden Gram opportunity with SD Bullion. So if you visit SD Bullion /RTD, you'll have a chance to buy a 1 gram bar of gold for dealer cost, which I believe as of now, there's no deal like that out here on the internet. So take advantage of that. And other than that, I will see you guys tonight. Let me know your thoughts on this format here. The goal was to be sweet, simple, share with you some headlines that caught my eye. And there's a lot more that I couldn't put in here, but if I did, it'll probably be too long for a quick news update on what's happening in the headlines. So other than that, I'll see you guys tonight. Make sure you guys give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you're new to RTD, share this and as well as the article. So see you guys tonight.